Welcome, travelers, to my realm of nightmares. Allow me to be your personal assistant. Come in, take a seat, get comfortable. For when you step into my realm, there's no stepping out.
Tales from an Insomniac, Part 2, A Night In. My eyes shot open. It couldn't have been real. I lay frozen in fear. All I wanted to do was sleep, but I was terrified now. Did I really just hear that? I checked my phone. Almost 6 a.m. I sighed. It was beginning to get lighter outside at least. It was still pretty dark, but dawn was fast approaching, and my ex-wife will be dropping Julian, my 4-year-old son, off in 2 hours. I take him every Sunday and Tuesdays, and every second Saturday. I wish I could see him every day, but such is life, I guess. My ex-wife Linda left a couple of years ago because apparently I had become withdrawn. We barely spoke to each other, and I suppose she was right. I had become withdrawn. I was disappearing a lot more often during my sleepless nights and for longer periods of time. I was never up to anything other than being a loner, but she probably had her suspicions too, so that didn't help. Anyways, I suppose I should get up. I felt so groggy, I stumbled downstairs again, turning all the lights off, and made myself a coffee. It was freezing. The kitchen window was wide open, so I shut it and turned the heat on. I put the TV on and had a quick look at the news headlines. Nothing interesting, so I started channel flicking. I was about halfway through my coffee when my stomach started to turn. The kitchen window, I made triple sure every single door and window was locked before I went upstairs to bed. Mental images of the previous night raced through my head. The skipping stones, that drowned woman, the guy's face. It made me shiver just thinking about it. I went back upstairs for my coffee. There was nothing good on TV, as per usual, so I decided to make sure that the spare room was ready for Julian. I changed the bedding and tidied up a little. They would be here soon. I had time for a quick shower and got myself ready, feeling a little more alive thanks to the coffee and shower. 3 knocks on the door startled me just as I walked past. "Hi, son," I said as I swung the door open. Nobody was there. Now I'm fucking freaked out again. I slammed the door shut, and instantly 3 knocks rattled the inside of my head. It sounded like a bowling ball falling down some wooden stairs. I sat with my back to the door. "Please, just stop," I whispered to myself. 3 more knocks. I got to my feet. Hesitantly, I unlatched the handle and slowly opened the door. "Daddy! Hi, Daddy!" My son's sweet little voice was like music to my ears. "Jules, come give me a hug, wee man," I said, delighted to see his face. Not so delighted to see the dagger look from Linda. What the hell was she pissed off about? "Come on in," I said to both of them. "Jules, go get your toy box. Mom and Dad need to talk for a minute." Linda gestured to a lounge where a box of Julian's toys were stored. She led me into the kitchen. "What the fuck was that about, Cameron?" She snarled at me, getting right in my face. "What was what about? What do you mean?" "We were standing, waiting at the door for you, and you open it and slam it in our faces. What the fuck are you on?" Julian was frightened. "You better not be on fucking drugs, Cameron, because if you are, this is the last time you will see him. I swear to fucking God." They were at the door? I couldn't have been more confused. There was definitely nobody there when I opened it. No time to think about it right now. Just say the right words and get this angry psycho out of my house. Think about it later. This really fucked with my head, though. No, Linda, I'm not on drugs, for God's sake. I haven't slept much at all recently. I was just joking with the door thing, like a little prank. But, I guess I look like death warmed up, but that's only because I haven't slept. I'm fine now. I had coffee and a shower, and I'm feeling good. I explained while gently ushered her back into the hallway. Everything's fine, I promise, I added. I gave Jules a shout to come say goodbye to his mom, and quickly led her out the front door. When she had left, Jules was still playing with his toys. I just joined him in the lounge, and I slumped on the couch. Jules looked so happy playing with his cars and trucks. I put Nickelodeon on for Jules, and I lay down on the couch. I wasn't paying attention to the TV. Only Jules playing I could hear, and my eyes were slowly getting heavier. Crash! Oops, purple cars crashed into the monster truck. Get the ambulance. Nee-wah, nee-wah, nee-wah. Bless him. Jules continued. Come on, purple car. Let's get you to Gecko's garage. He'll fix you up. My eyes were getting heavier. I had tunnel vision, and Julian's voice was sounding more like an echo in my hollow head. Nee-wah, nee-wah. Oh no, ambulance is stuck. Monster trucks are helping ambulance. Vroom, vroom. Give me it back. No, give me it back. It's mine. Daddy, he's taking my trucks. I sprang from the couch, panicked. What happened? Jules was visibly upset, but nothing was out of place. The sketchy man tried to take my monster truck, Julian said, more annoyed than fearful. I could feel the lump in my throat return. I felt sick. I was so tired. Okay, Jules, well, he's gone now, so there's nothing to worry about. It was just your imagination, I said while setting him on my knee. I don't think he's gone, Dad, Jules whispered, as we both heard two thumps from above us. I immediately ran upstairs, but all was quiet. There was nothing at all, nothing out of place, no person or anything else. I checked under every bed, every wardrobe, behind every door. Nothing. I went back down to get Jules. We should go out, grab a ball and some toys, and we can go to the park. Jules jumped up. Yay, the park! He screamed as he grabbed some trucks and a football. We spent a few hours kicking the ball around and just messing around in the park. We got some lunch, some sandwiches and chips. As we were leaving the cafe, I ran into an old friend of my dad's, Big Joe, or as some called him, Old Joe. Some called him the veteran. I don't even know how old this guy was, but he looked about 100 when I was young. Anyway, the reason I was so glad to see him was that if you ever wanted to know anything about a V-more, past or present, he always knew. He seemed to know everything that had ever happened and all the latest town gossip. Joe, I said, it's been a while. How are you, old timer? Cameron, son, you're looking good. I've never been better. My God, is that Jules? You were just an ankle biter last time I saw you, wee man. He ruffled Julian's hair. He shied away behind me, peering at Joe with suspicion. Aye, he's getting big now, starting school next year, I said with a proud look on my face. This is Joe. He was a friend of Grandpa's, I explained to Julian as he continued to hide behind me. Anyway, Joe, I'm actually glad I ran into you. Something happened last night up at Avi Locon. Something so insane, I can't even describe it all right now. But I was wondering if I could bend your ear about it. Maybe tomorrow if you have time. Joe's expression changed. He looked a slight more worried and pleased now. Okay, Cameron. He stuttered and stumbled over his words. His voice fell to a whisper. Listen, make sure you come round to my house tomorrow. As soon as you drop off Julian, come alone. As early as possible. Okay, no worries, Joe. I'll be there. I felt a bit freaked out by his response. He had a serious look of worry in his face, and I was eager to find out what he knew. Joe hurried away without another word, so Jules and I started down the street. We were originally going to see a movie, but there wasn't anything good in the cinema, so instead, we went to a shop to look for a DVD to buy. We got popcorn, snacks, and some juice, and we got Toy Story 4 and Pinocchio. Secretly, Pinocchio was partly for me too. It was my favorite Disney movie. Let's have a night in. A couple of movies and some snacks. I smiled to Jules as the shop assistant carefully packed our stuff into bags. She smiled at Jules. Ooh, Toy Story 4 is one of my favorites. Have you seen it? Jules shot away, behind me again. No, you haven't seen it yet, son, I answered on his behalf, smiling back. Haha, well, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. She let out a light laugh at Jules being shy. That'll be $38.30. I handed her over 40 euros, and she gave me my change. Thank you very much, she said. Thank you, I replied, smiling. As I turned to head to the exit, I caught sight of her name tag. Hello, my name is Loretta. Happy to help, it read. My head felt dizzy, and I stumbled a step. Are you okay, sir? She asked as she put an arm out to steady me. I'm fine, I replied. It's just, I looked at the name tag again. Hello, my name is Lauren. Happy to help. I shook my head, then stared for a moment in confusion. It's nothing. I'm sorry. I felt a bit dizzy. Jules looked at me slightly worried. I took his hand, and we walked quickly to the car. When I sat inside, I had to think for a few minutes. Did I imagine that? My head was spinning. Flashbacks from the night before were vivid in my mind. We got back home. It was around 4 p.m., so Jules had 3 or 4 more hours until bedtime. Time enough to watch both movies, eat snacks, and get him bathed and ready for bed. Our night in went without incident, aside from me almost falling asleep multiple times. We had a fantastic night, just us two. Jules loved the movies, and so did I. I got him in his bed, and started reading him a Dr. Seuss book. It was What I Scared Off, the one about the trousers with nobody inside that chases the character around. He was sleeping before I was even halfway through, but I finished anyway. I kind of enjoyed it. My big kid side was showing through tonight. I felt like I'd be able to go to sleep pretty easily tonight. I could barely focus on the book. I was that tired. I went downstairs and got some water before returning to my bedroom. I lay in bed, eyes wide open, praying I would be able to fall asleep tonight. I checked on Jules on the little camera, and he was out for it. My eyes, once again, closing on the brink of sleep. My body relaxed, and finally, I switched off. The dreams took over. I felt like I hadn't slept for weeks. I had a weird dream. I got Jules a Stretch Armstrong toy for his birthday, and it went wild and started wrapping its arms around him hundreds of times, and I couldn't get it off. Eventually, it woke me up. I was in a cold sweat. I checked my clock. 1:22 a.m. It was actually quite depressing seeing that. I really felt like I was going to sleep right through the night. I just lay there, listening to the wind outside. I didn't want to look. I didn't want to move. No less than a minute later, I heard Julian screaming, like a blood-curdling scream. I jolted out of bed and burst into his room. Daddy, 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 help! He screeched as he sat upright, crying his eyes out. The stretchy man said he was taking me away. My body felt weak. I felt absolutely helpless as he sat there physically shaking. I put my arms around him. It's okay, son. You can come sleep in my bed. It was just a nightmare, I said, knowing to myself that something more sinister was definitely going on, but not wanting to admit it. I'm scared, Dad. He's not my friend. I think he's a bad man. I looked at him sobbing and tried to comfort him. Okay, well, I'm here now, and I won't let him do anything. It was just a bad dream. I carried him to my bed, and I lay awake for several hours while he eventually slept beside me. I was on high alert. Everything had me on edge. I think I slept for another hour, maybe. Then my alarm went off. I had to get Julian ready for the nursery. We had some toast for breakfast. I had a coffee, and I dropped him off at 7:45. I love you, son. Have a fun day today. I gave him a kiss on the head. Love you, Daddy, he shouted, already turning to run into his class. I had to get to Joe's ASAP. I wasn't sure if it was too early but I figured I would drive by anyways and see if he was up. He did say as soon as I dropped Julian off, so surely he should be waiting for me. I drove around. His house was about halfway down a dead-end street, so I drove past so I could turn around and park facing the way I'd be leaving. As I drove past, I saw a large black transit van with a strange red W symbol on the side, parked just outside Joe's house. When I got to the end of the street, in my rear view, I saw a hooded figure coming from Joe's front door, jumping in the van and sped off. I parked in a newly vacant space on the street. When I got out, I had a good look around. Something was strange. What had just happened? Something didn't sit well with me about the van man. I marched up to the front door and rang the bell. No answer. I rang it again. No answer. I tried the handle and the door cracked open. "Joe?" I shouted, hoping to God he still lived here. I received no reply. I entered the house. The smell was so overpowering, it made me feel lightheaded. I felt like I was struggling to breathe and see. It was the petrol. Joe's house smelled like a petrol station. "Joe!" I screamed as I darted up the stairs. Joe was sitting in the hallway, soaking wet on a wooden seat with tears in his eyes. "Joe, what the fuck is going on?" I demanded. Joe sat and whimpered, "I'm sorry, son. I'm so sorry." "Joe, what? Sorry about what? What the hell is all this?" Joe struck a match. "Follow the whispers in the woods. Don't trust anyone, not even the police." He held the match to his neck. "Joe, wait! Don't!" I barked at him as his whole body was engulfed in flames in the blink of an eye. The fire snaked and spread onto the floor like it was chasing me down. I fell backwards down the stairs. Luckily, I was able to get myself out, but I had hurt myself badly. I was able to make it to my car to phone the emergency services. I picked my phone up. 7 missed calls. It rang again seconds after I picked it up. "Hello? Hi, is this Mr. Murphy?" The worried tone in the woman's voice convinced me this was not going to be good. "Yes, speaking. Who is this?" "This is Carolyn from the Avi Vmore Early Years and Daycare Nursery. You better come down right away. Your son Julian is missing. The police are on their way, and so is his mother." I almost choked. It's a phone call nobody ever wants to get, and you never expect it to happen to you. I felt like someone had ripped out every organ in my entire body. I began shaking uncontrollably. "What happened? I mean, what's happening?" I tried to get my words out, but I could barely speak. "Sir, if you could get here right away, please. We will go through the whole protocol with everybody. I'm sure he'll turn up, but we need you both here as soon as possible." I hung up the phone, jumped in my car, and I started fucking bombing it down the road back to the nursery. I only left a half an hour ago. This didn't make any sense. I didn't even think about Joe's place burning to the ground. Surely someone would phone it in. What if they saw me speeding away from the scene? All these things rattled around in my mind. I couldn't even think straight, but my train of thought was well and truly stopped in its tracks. Just as I approached Julian's nursery, I parked about halfway down the street because I saw something that made my heart stop. Linda's car, 3 police cars, and a large black transit van with a strange red W symbol on the side, parked amongst them. I sat in my parked car and observed the comings and goings of the nursery. There were several police officers milling around, and every now and again, Linda would pop out crying. She was inconsolable as officers tried to steady her on her feet and calm her down. I hadn't seen anyone approach the black van yet. I couldn't not go in. I had to go in. Otherwise, it might draw some suspicion on me somehow. I waited a few more minutes before I pulled out, making sure that nobody saw that I was parked down the street. I I pulled up behind the van and got out, hoping to get a look in the back windows. They were tinted too dark. I couldn't see anything at all. They may as well not have been there. As I rounded the van, I got a peek inside the cab. Nothing suspicious to note. I stepped inside the nursery. I could already hear Linda sobbing from outside. I took a deep breath and headed for the office. I opened the door. 4 police officers, Linda, a nursery nurse, and the owner, or head of the nursery, turned around. The nursery's nurse was also crying. Everyone else was stone-faced as they stared, waiting for me to break the silence. "I'm Julian's dad." My voice croaked as I realized how dry my mouth was. Linda ran over and threw her arms around me. Why did it have to be him?" She sobbed and sniffled as she forced her words out. "It'll be okay, Linda. We'll find him." I hugged her back in an attempt to comfort her the only way I knew how. "Can somebody fill me in, please?" I asked as everyone just stood there, twiddling their thumbs. The owner of the daycare spoke up. Julian had been talking about a man who kept trying to take his toys and annoying him. He ran from his class and hid in a cupboard. He was out of sight for 10 seconds max, and when the nurse opened the door, he vanished. We think he didn't go into the cupboard and instead ran outside where he was snatched. It seems impossible that he could make it that fast, but there is no other explanation. We don't have any witnesses or proof of what happened. To tell the truth, we don't actually have any proof of anything at this time. I turned to the police. "Who's in charge here?" I asked. One officer stepped out of the room without a word. I just stood there looking confused. "I need some answers here. This is my son." The officer returned with a tall, bulky detective-looking guy in an expensive suit. "You're looking for the officer in charge?" "That would be me, Detective Chief, Superintendent Williams." "Williams, is that your van parked outside?" I asked, feeling sure he wouldn't have seen me at the veteran's house, so I wanted to see if he would slip up. "My van?" He looked confused. "Yes, the black transit van outside. Whose is it?" My voice getting noticeably louder. "I have no idea," said Williams. "Let me check that out for you." I followed him outside. Just before we reached the exit, I had the feeling in my gut that I knew exactly what was going to happen here. I wasn't even shocked to see that the van was gone. Everyone just looked at me like I was crazy. "Must have been someone else's van," I muttered. My car was still parked in the same place, right behind where the van once stood. I couldn't wrap my head around all the bizarre things that kept happening. I didn't have time to think. We had to find Jules. DCS Williams spoke up. "So, if yourself and the boy's mother could accompany us to the station, we need your statements, and we need statements from the nursery staff." "Absolutely. No problem," I hesitantly replied. As I was walking away, I overheard Caroline, the head of the nursery, tell Williams that she had seen someone park the van one street over. Fucking knew it. I knew something wasn't right with him. This whole situation reeked of shit, and I was going to get to the bottom of it one way or another. The blue lights all flashed on in unison, and the police convoy set off. Then Linda's car, then myself, with 2 cars behind me. I could see Williams and Caroline talking in my rear view and glancing over to me as we drove away. We drove straight to the station. Once inside, we were taken separately and asked to give a statement. When we last saw Julian, what his mood was like, what he was wearing, did he have many friends, etc., etc. One question caught me off guard though. It wasn't unusual. I can imagine it's one of the most typical standard questions in this situation. "Where were you between 7:45 and 8:15 this morning?" Now, of course, they should ask anyone and everyone this, but I was at the veteran's house. I didn't want to say I was there because then that might open a whole other line of questioning. Plus the fact that I saw the van there, which was possibly driven by Williams. If he found out I knew he was at the scene, I might be in for a rough time. On the other hand, what if someone saw me fleeing right before the house caught fire, or worse, What if William saw me? I had already hesitated long enough. It was a simple question. It was less than 2 hours ago, and I was making myself look somewhat suspicious by taking so long to answer. I'm sorry. My mind is a million miles away right now. I mumbled, buying myself time. Let me think. Dropped Julian off. Then I headed to see one of my dad's old friends, Big Joe McKenzie. You might know him as the veteran. I made sure I didn't speak of him in the past tense. Of course we know Joe. How long were you there for? The detective queried. Oh, seconds. I knocked on the door twice and he never answered, so I just left and started heading home. Then I got the call about Jules and went straight to the nursery. I explained, almost convincing myself. Okay, was there anyone else there? This stuck out as odd. Maybe it was another routine question, but I'm now wondering what they know. Why would they ask that when I'm just visiting a friend? And all I said is I knocked on the door and left. It didn't add up in my head. No, I never saw anyone. The two detectives glanced at each other for a second. Then the other asked, the nursery said they called you 7 or 8 times before getting through. Why was that? I'm not sure. I was probably driving and just didn't hear my phone. It's usually on silent. I only noticed the missed calls when I was checking the time. Then it rang in my hand as I looked. That's when I answered. They both seemed to take notes, then continued asking me more questions. I was then asked to sign a statement containing all the information I had just shared with them, and we were done. Thank you for your full cooperation, Mr. Murphy. Our investigation has already went beyond the first steps, so hopefully we'll be able to find Julian soon. The next 48 hours are critical, so I can assure you we'll be working around the clock to get him home safe. Thank you. Please find him, I pleaded as I shook their hands. We'll do everything we can. They turned and led me back to the lobby where Linda was waiting, still red-eyed and crying her heart out. We waited for everyone else to come out and give their statement. Then we all went back to the nursery to try and organize some kind of search party right away. I was suspicious of DCS Williams and now Caroline, but I felt like I couldn't tell anyone, like it would backfire and everyone would think I'm insane and not believe me. I could see how everyone, especially Linda, had their full trust in those two people, and I would need some kind of evidence, something concrete to back up my theory before I go blurting out accusations. But for now, I'd play along and just try to find my son. After the first critical 48 hours, we still hadn't heard a word from the police. We had search parties day and night, looking everywhere for any sign. Linda would join the day search, but I was able to join both since I only slept about 2 or 3 hours a day anyway. I was out pretty much constantly looking for him. The fact we hadn't had a single update worried me. It felt like they weren't bothering to even search for him. I thought they would have patrols out, police guided searches, sniffer dogs, helicopters. There was none of that. It was like they'd just forgotten. I eventually contacted them, only to be told they were doing all they could, and it was under investigation. Blah, blah, blah. After the third day, I was contacting them every hour or two, around the clock. There had to be some kind of update, surely, but every time I contacted them, it was the same story. What was weird was that there had been absolutely no report on Joe's house or anything about Joe. Not a word by anyone, not in the local paper. It was like he'd just been completely overlooked. I mean, I wasn't really complaining. I didn't want to find myself answering questions about that, but I just thought it was a bit odd that nobody had even mentioned it. Days 5 and 6, the search parties had gotten smaller in number and shorter. People were giving up so easily, it kinda hurt. I think they must have thought, if a 4-year-old was out alone in winter for 5 or 6 days, the search would be either for a body or kidnapper, and nobody wanted to be confronted by either of those things. There was still a select few, family and friends, still searching relentlessly with us, but we always came up empty-handed. It crushed me every time a search had to be stopped because of weather or some other reasons. All I could think of was my poor boy lost and alone, while we all go home and sit in front of our fire. After a week of no answers and continuously calling the station 20 to 30 times a day most days, DCS Williams showed up at my door. It was 11 p.m. and he was alone, as was I. Hi. Is everything okay? I wasn't expecting anyone tonight, I said as he stood on my porch, wet from the rain. Good evening, Mr. Murphy. I just wanted to stop by, unofficially, to see how you were getting on, he declared in his comforting baritone voice. Well, I suppose I'm holding up okay, considering. I'm actually getting ready. May I come in, Cameron? He interrupted. Is it okay if I call you Cameron? He said, placing one foot over the threshold. I suppose so. I don't really care, I mumbled as he pushed his way inside. He walked straight into my lounge and sat down, making himself at home, as if I had already told him to do so. I followed shortly after, still a bit wary about the whole thing. Please sit. He gestured to the armchair, sitting to the left of the couch. So, what's this all about? I asked. What? No cup of tea? You don't have guests around often, do you? He stared directly in my eyes. I felt intimidated. He was a big guy. Well, I don't have any tea bags. Sorry. I felt like I was already walking on eggshells, like this could go south at any second. He continued to stare menacingly. Not to worry. Relax, kid. So do you have absolutely no idea why I'm here? He began pulling some folded up papers from his long coat. No, I've got no idea. Sorry, I said, trying to catch a glimpse of the papers he held in his hand. Well, he looked and flicked through a couple of sheets. You told one of my detectives you attended the dwelling of a Mr. Joe McKenzie on the morning Julian went missing. He looked up from the paper with an over-exaggerated friendly grin. I did, yes, I replied. Okay. He looked back, smiling at the papers. He ruffled in his hands. Okay, thank you. So can you tell me why you failed to mention anything about Joe's house burning to the ground? Immediately, I felt like I was under attack, but I couldn't let it show. I didn't hear anything about that. It wasn't on fire when I got there. I was stumbling over my words. Okay. So you had already left the area before the fire started? He looked at me with an unconvincing, reassuring, relax, Cameron. You're not under arrest or anything. You're getting a bit fidgety. I just don't want you to think I had anything to do with it, I said, reaching for a cigarette. And why would I think that, Cameron? You got there, tapped the door, nobody answered, you left, simple as that. You saw absolutely nothing else at all. Is that correct? He's now staring at me so intensely, I struggled to look back. No, I saw nothing at all. I must have looked visibly shaken by now. Good, he said, returning to the reassuring, friendly smile he must have used 1,000,000 times. I saw right through it. Well, best be off. Don't want you to be late for your search party. He stood up and hastily walked to the front door. I followed closely, feeling relieved. Then he turned, just as the door opened, and whispered in my ear, By the way, whatever the old cunt told you, you keep your fucking mouth shut, or I'll have you locked up so fast, you'll get whiplash. Then he giggled loudly and spoke in an obnoxiously loud voice as he walked to his car. Well, thanks for the tea, Cameron. I wish you the best in your search tonight. You ever need anything, give me a call. Straight away. He smiled again and got into his car. I was scared, I'll be honest. I was enraged. I was pissed off, but I was fucking terrified. He knew I was there. He knew what happened, and he knows that I know he was there. He came here to shut me up, to make sure I wasn't going to say anything. This whole tragedy, the fire, the veteran's death, it's all been covered up because he knows I saw him there. Although, why was he worried about what Joe told me? There were so many questions, but right now, I was unable to even think about that. Because I was staring at my table, and the piles of papers DCS Williams had left behind. I don't know if I should look or, in fact, I knew immediately there was no point in having any kind of internal debate on whether or not to look. As soon as I saw them, I knew I was looking. I picked them up. They were printouts of pictures taken the morning Julian went missing. They showed me arriving at Joe's, me at Joe's door, me entering Joe's house, me running from Joe's house while the upstairs window had a dim orange glow that wasn't present in the others, me driving away, another of me driving away, and Joe's house in a fierce blaze top to bottom. So, obviously, this didn't look good. Considering I had already lied to police about my whereabouts, it made me look even more suspicious. He left these here on purpose to show me what he had on me, and he had me completely under his thumb, and it would take a fucking miracle for me to get out. If anything, this made me take Joe's final words more seriously. I couldn't trust anyone, and I would have to do some digging for information about the woods or find out what the hell's going on. What did he mean by the whispers? I knew of only one person I feel like I could properly trust, my friend Archie, who I grew up with. All through school and our childhood, we had been best friends, although the past 8 years or so, I had only spoken with him a handful of times. If I was taking my shot and telling someone everything, then it was going to be him. I just hoped they hadn't gotten to him first. When I met Archie the following morning, he looked depressed. He looked malnourished and at the end of his rope. The reason we never spoke much for all these years wasn't through lack of trying. Archie just became a bit of a hermit, for lack of better words. About 8 years ago, he was married to one of his longtime friends, Michelle. They were each other's first love and got married at 19. About 5 years later, she fell pregnant. When Michelle was giving birth, she was put under anesthesia, and she swore she heard the baby cry when it was born. The doctors told her she had a stillborn, and she might have been hallucinating. They wouldn't even let Archie in the ward. They said it would be too distressing. She killed herself about 8 months later. Archie found her hanging in their garage. The death of the baby was bad enough, but they wouldn't even release the body. Apparently, it was some protocol that it was taken to a tiny coffin and buried in a small cemetery nearby the hospital, under a memorial stone with the inscription, "Been born asleep." The nurse let them name the baby before he was laid to rest. Neither of them got to hold their firstborn. Then, still grieving, he finds his beloved wife swinging from a rope. He just collapsed in on himself and became reclusive. I don't even know how long it had been since he last ate, or even seen anyone. Archie. I spoke softly as he sat on his porch, staring at the ground. He didn't respond. Archie, it's me, Cameron. I took a few steps towards him and sat on the ground in his line of sight. How are you? I miss you, man. I extended a hand and his eyes met mine. Cammy, how are you? It's been fucking ages. His hand came forth and shook mine. I'm okay, Archie. I don't know if you heard or not. It's Julian. He went missing. He sat silent for a few seconds. Missing? What the fuck? How? Where? Well, what happened? He began to come to life. It's a bit of a long story, man. We should go inside, though. I don't want anybody knowing I'm here. I got up and opened the front door. The house stank, and it was an absolute mess. We both entered. I sat in a chair. Archie sat on the couch opposite. I told him absolutely everything. From the woods and Avi Lokan, to Julian disappearing, to Williams threatening me the night before. Archie stared dumbfounded, but he didn't seem surprised, as I expected with some of the details. That rat bastard Williams. Man, I knew there was something crooked about him. He snarled as he looked off to the side, thinking. I knew something wasn't right. The whole thing with the van was just completely off, I replied, shaking my head. Archie sat in silence for a few moments. I need to tell you something, Cammy. He rose from his battered old couch and walked over to his fireplace. He took something down. His house was dark, but I could make out it was some sort of doll. He threw it over to me. I looked at it. It was muddy and rotten, I felt confused. What is this? Was this a toy you bought for Ben or something? Archie came closer, tears visible in his face. No, Cammy, this is fucking Ben. He spoke with aggression. After Michelle's suicide, I went fucking haywire. Started taking all sorts of drugs and drinking. I went to the cemetery and dug up Ben's grave. I don't know what I was thinking or what I planned on doing, but inside his tiny little coffin, Cammy, there was this fucking doll. He grabbed it and threw it into the unlit log fire. And he continued, and I got arrested. Guess who fucking let me off with it? That fucker Williams. He assured me I wouldn't go to prison if I just kept my mouth shut. Fed me some shit about the hospital using stillborn babies for some kind of research. All above board, and a government speech, blah fucking blah. I stared at Archie, not believing my ears. He fucking manipulated me into keeping my mouth shut and acting like he was my friend. If he's behind this somehow, I'll fucking kill him myself. Shouting now as he paced up and down the room. When I saw Archie in this fit of rage and anger, hearing these words, an ever so slight smile crept to my face. Listen, Archie, me and you, we're gonna sort all this shit out, I exclaimed as I just realized that I found my guy. Tonight is the continuation of Tales from an Insomniac. It is entry 2 and 3 from Raggaejunkiegee. If you enjoyed this, please let him know. The links to his Reddit as well as all of his other social medias will be in the description below. Check him out and tell him PA sent you. Hey, did you have merch? Well, I do. And if you'd like to walk around representing my realm and gaining me new travelers, the links to my merch store as well as all of my other social medias will be in the description below. As always, I'd like to say a special thank you to all my lovely Patreons. 242 Reads, Rando Calrissian, Seraphine, the Midnight Bard, Hair Raising Narratives, Spooky Boo, Scary Story Time, Lycan Trucker, Pimp Demon, Awkward Alien Kayla. And if you'd like to join these lovely travelers but light my fire, you can do so by becoming a Patreon as well. The support is always appreciated, but it's never expected. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, and ding that bell if you're new for all future content, as it really helps push this video into the algorithm and helps the channel grow.
But as always, travelers, once you step into my realm, there's no stepping out.